We've got some.
Hey, I'm Luis.
And I'm Luis.
And you're listening to the Content is Profit podcast.
We spent the last 4 years learning the strategies and techniques from some of the top marketers in the world on how to create content that turns into profit.
If you'd like to learn more about how to turn your content into profit, go to contentisprofit.com.
That's right, guys. Today, how to overcome the relentless challenges business owners face.
This is beautiful.
Wouldn't you like to know that? Because
Yes.
I know I do.
I know I do. We have been business owners for about 5 years now.
With plenty of challenges.
Plenty of challenges. We talked about them in the show, and I'm sure like today we're gonna dive in. So that's why we're so excited. But before we get started, please guys, go ahead and subscribe. Hit the subscribe button of the Content is Profit podcast and follow us on social media. We're happy to chat with you guys over DMs at BizBrosco everywhere.
That's right, guys. And if you find this episode impactful, which I am sure you will, please don't forget to share it and leave a 5-star review.
So, guess where we met today's guest? Shocker, at a conference. That being said, today's guest is a total badass. And not only in life, but in business and the publishing space as well. Fun fact, his podcast was the first one we were invited to. You could say he popped our podcast cherry.
With a 15-year career as a police officer and a member of the SWAT team, total badass, you better believe he's a badass. But what happens when someone like this person decides to focus on helping others succeed in their own lives and businesses? Well, we'll discover that pretty soon.
He helps business owners get clear, focused, and get results in both their personal and professional lives. He helps them overcome the relentless challenges that they face every single day. But what is his most impressive achievement? His marriage and being a father of 3.
That's pretty awesome. Guys, please welcome the tactical businessman, incredible husband and father, and someone you don't want to mess up with, Mr. Gerritt Bang! Let's go!
That was awesome. I love it. I love it. Hey, and those midday naps are called a siesta, and it's okay.
That's right.
I know that's we learned that is in what do you call it? It's a must do for some of us.
I need mine is super quick. My naps are 20 minutes, no more, because if it's more than 20 minutes, I'm like groggy. If it's less, I actually don't get it. I don't get to rest at all. I found out 20 minutes is the perfect amount of time for me. Do you take the siesta?
No, I do. I call it meditation.
Oh, look at that. That's good.
There you
I
go.
just fall asleep sometimes.
I love it, dude. Well, Gerritt, dude, thank you so much for coming onto the show. We're extremely excited to have you here. Extremely, obviously, thankful that you put some time for us and chat a little bit about what you do and how you can help people and especially us. Because we're taking notes here.
We got this is our excuse. We bring people to the podcast, right? So we can just get this 1 hour, take a bunch of notes. We tell some people often, it's like, hey, like, even though obviously we want to help the people on the other side, sometimes we do this podcast for a little of a selfish reason, so we can learn from all of you guys. There you go.
Yes, for those
Always learning.
yeah,
Always learning.
For those listening, he just showed up a little pad. So yeah, I think that's a really good action point. Whatever you're like listening or learning, just like take some notes, and there's always a value in there. So Gerritt, like, why don't you start sharing a little bit of who you are, where you come from, like from SWAT team and police officer to now live tactical experience and all this stuff for business owners. I'm excited.
All right. I'll give you the abbreviated version. So again, great intro. Yes, I was a police officer in the Phoenix area for 15 years, and it was a great career that I had. I had the opportunity to work a lot of different assignments, the SWAT team being part of them, working narcotics, working undercover, and it was good for me in my professional life. But what it was really bad for was my personal life. And a lot of business owners can relate to this because there are no set hours. There's no set schedule. There's no, hey, I'm going to be home in time for dinner. Sometimes you start work at 3 o'clock in the morning and you end at 2 o'clock in the morning. And it was just a lot of randomness. And for me, I was focused on my business, my professional life, and helping that grow. And it was growing and it was doing really well. But at the same time, I was neglecting the reason why I was working. and that was my family. And it got to this point where, we were at the lowest of lows, which a lot of men get to. And they get so distracted by business, by the reason why there's, in business to begin with, that they start to sacrifice those things, their family, so on and so forth. And we got to the point where we just didn't see eye to eye anymore. And I like to use this phrase that we'd become roommates with a ring. In other words, we saw each other in passing. Like, I would work at night, I would show up in the morning, then she would leave and go to work during the day. And we just kept doing that, and we had no relationship left. And so you get to that point where you're like, oh, well, this isn't going to work anymore. Let's do what everybody else does. And that's get divorced, right? That's the best option. And we started to go down that path, and I realized that wasn't really what I wanted, right? And the most powerful question that anyone can ask, whether you're a business owner or not, the most powerful question you can ask yourself is, what do I want, right? And asking myself that question, I realized what I really wanted was to have a successful marriage. What I wanted to have was kids who wanted to be with me and play with me. What I really wanted was also to be successful inside of my business, my professional life. Yeah. And I was like, well, how come nobody's talking about that? They either talk about like Gary Vee, who's hustle and grind. Like, I don't think that guy ever sleeps. Or they're the other side of things, like, hey, just get a job, work 9 to 5, turn off your phone at 5, and then just, hang out with your family. Yeah. But there's this constant struggle, because what do you want? You want both of them, right? So why can't you have both of them? And so I started to explore that path, and it took a few years to figure it out. But I took a lot of the training and experience that I had in the police force and combined it inside of some of the other things that I'd learned. Like you mentioned, we met in a seminar, the different seminars that I'd gone to, events, and so on and so forth, and came up with this program that worked for me. And in the process, I realized that there were a lot of other people that were struggling with the same thing, and they started to approach me. Hey, can you help me? Hey, what do you do about this? Hey, how do I do this? And I realized that my love and desire for helping people inside of police work, it kind of waned a little bit, and it transitioned over to helping people inside of their personal and professional lives. And that's kind of when that happened. It was about 3 years ago. I left my career at the height, you could say. I was having a great gig, a great time, but it was time to transition to something new. And that's where I'm at today. I created the Tactical Businessman, and the sole purpose of that is to help you have it all, to help you be professionally on point, and at the same time have a personal life that means something.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Wonderful story. I mean,
that's powerful.
That is very powerful, especially because you came from a career that, it sounds like you really loved, and you were very passionate. You're still probably very passionate about it, but then you sat down and you basically listed out your priorities and what's more important to you. And you're like, I need to figure out a way to make this work. And I feel like us as entrepreneurs, that is a very hard question to ask or even answer. I know personally, I've been going through that also because, on the initial phases of growing the business, we might have to work a lot of hours. It's like, where's that balance? Is our partner even like good with us doing that? How can we explore that possibility with them? So I feel like your story resonates big time, and I'm sure it's going to resonate with a lot of people starting their business and on the show. So thank you for sharing that powerful story, and I can't wait to dive in a little bit more.
Yeah, I love the transition into something new, even because a lot of people are like, yeah, I transitioned, but it's usually when they are unhappy with what they were doing before. But you're like, I transitioned even though you love what you were doing, which is powerful, because you also mentioned, you ask yourself, what do you want? Right. And you wanted that family, that, having a life with your family as well. So, giving up something for what you really love and what you really want is difficult. I don't think everybody are able to do it. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe people are just not willing to ask the right questions, right? And then come up with that conclusion. Because I think when you're hustling like Gary Vee, and I'm not saying this might be Gary Vee's situation, but like usually when we just hustle, is we don't have time to actually sit down and think, right? So that's why I'm not a big fan of the hustle community. I'm a big fan of, yes, you got to work hard and work smart, but not hustle nonstop. But something that you said that I really, resonated with me was neglecting the why. And I say this because when we started Biz Bros, I was like, you know what? Like, I want to do it so I can have that freedom to travel, to just move around and all this stuff. And then I look back, how often have I done that, right? In all these years, just once, right? So I was like, like that's interesting, right? And I think right now with our new team members, I've been trying to find that new balance, if you want to call it that way. But I think I've been aware that I've been neglecting my wife. So the way you said it, it was actually pretty enlightening, if you call it that way.
So how, like, what are some of the, like, how do you start to identify that, right? Even if you were like happy in that position, right? But how do you start identifying those things, right? And sometimes we're like so into what we do that, you know, stepping back 2-3 steps might be really challenging. Just like that simple action was like stopping and looking around. So how do you identify that moment in life?
Great question. A couple of things I want to hit first. The first, you guys keep talking about it, is balance, right? And anybody who tells you that there's balance in life is lying to you. There is never balance. It is constantly trying to balance, right? Because as you know, when you start off a business, you're going to be spending a lot of time working. It just, that's the reality of running a business. We all love to have the Tim Ferriss life, working 4 hours a week on a laptop on a beach. It's not going to happen for 99.9% of people. That's okay, right? So balance doesn't exist. What does matter in that whole situation is being present, right? If you can allow yourself to be present at work and only at work, then it allows you to be present with your family and only your family at home, right? Where we struggle a lot as business owners is you have a fight with your wife, or your kid did something stupid and you're aggravated or whatever. What happens when you're at the office? Like, that's the only thing you're thinking about is, man, I'm going to sleep on the couch tonight, or I forgot to take out the trash, or whatever it is. And then you can't focus at work. And then, so you don't get your work done. And so what happens at home? You're thinking about work at home. You know, it's just a constant losing battle. So what I tell people is the most important thing is there is no balance. Just be present. Like, your kids don't want you to play with them all day long. That's okay. But the time that you're at home, like, you have to be present, which allows you then to be present at work, right? That's the important thing. Now, when we're looking at the grand scheme of things, that was the biggest thing that I struggled with, was this idea in police work and the military, they call it situational awareness, right? You don't just blindly walk into a situation and just be like, okay, like, here I am, let's go, right? What do they spend months and sometimes years doing? It's becoming aware of what's going on in the environment, right? So when they walk into a city, for example, they know, okay, hey, the enemy likes to be in these certain areas, or they like to do these certain things. And so now they're aware of what's going on. So when they walk in there, they don't get blindsided because they're aware of what's happening, right? Very easy. Like, if I ask you guys, how many red cars did you see on the way to work today?
Wait, how many red cars did we see where?
On the way to work.
On the way to work.
Have no idea. Probably a couple, but no idea.
Right. But if you would have been looking for red cars, you would have seen them. It wasn't that they weren't there. You just didn't see them, right? The same thing when it comes to your relationship with your wife, same thing with your kids, is you have to become aware of what's going on in their life and what their needs are, right? So when you ask me, like, what was the biggest shift in my relationship? It was becoming aware of what was happening in my personal life. Like, my wife has a life, right? She has dreams, she has goals, she has desires. I have to pay attention to those and allow her to be able to fulfill those, because what does that do for me? Well, she's more fulfilled, she's more happy, which then she feeds more into the relationship for me, which allows me to be more fulfilled and more happy. And it's this back and forth thing. So it's the same thing at work, though, is the question that we start off with is, what do you want, right? I know you guys are really heavy into content, and content is amazing. I know we'll talk more about it, but just throwing out content and seeing what sticks is absolutely worthless, right? You're wasting your time. So what do you want with the content? Do you want more followers? Do you want people to go to your program? You know, you're trying to get more engagement. What are you trying to do with the content? And then cater the content. I know you guys talk about this, but I'm just going to reiterate it. Cater the content to the people that you're trying to talk to and what it is that you're trying to get them to do.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And I think you said something there really interesting about I love the awareness side of things, right? Because, I mean, you said it with a very clear example. It's like, you know, when, full disclosure here, when we got pregnant, we had no idea, like, that was not planned at all, right? And when you get something like that, you know, I say scared at the time.
Don't tell that to
freaked
Luca.
Out.
Don't be like, hey, Luca, you were an accident.
No. It's fine. But it was a beautiful accident. But you start seeing babies all over the place, right? You start being aware of that situation because your future is changing, right? And to me, it was to the better, right? But at the same time, you know, that episode happens to a lot of things, especially a lot of college kids that might not be on the safe side. They're like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm scared, and then I see babies all the time. So obviously for me, that was one of the things. Or when I wanted to buy my Jeep, right? I would see Jeeps everywhere because that was the thing I was aware to, right? And it's funny that we tend to do that with things that we want, the things that tends to be like material things, right? And not for the important things in life that like our relationships. So I love that you brought that point home, and it's like, okay, you know, if one of my priorities is to improve my relationship, even though I'm married, right? And I don't have to, a lot of people might think this, I might not have to compete, right? With, you know, trying to get to my wife, right? To get to marry to her. This is where the fulfillment side of things work, right? And it could be in business and it could be in relationships. I need to fulfill my relationship. So how do you fulfill in your relationship? You have to be aware of what she likes, what she tells you, what she, you know, do. So then you can go back and act the best way possible with her. And it works the same way with your business and your wife. So I love that there's so many similarities with both of them and that point of awareness.
Yeah, not long ago I read this book where the guy talked about and this is I think it's the scientific side of it, which is the reticular activation system is called, right? And it's that thing that when you're thinking about buying this new car, you start seeing that car everywhere. And it like you said, right, it translates to your life. If we're constantly thinking on the bad things, we're going to start seeing just negative things around us. And if we start thinking about opportunities, trying to be aware of opportunities, we're going to start seeing the opportunities. So like my brother said, I think the awareness is key. I'm just curious, you know, how do you build that awareness? How do you become aware of your awareness?
That's a great question. And it becomes an activity that you have to, it's like a muscle, right? So you have to become conscious about it. And in police work, in the military, they call putting yourself in a position of tactical advantage. In other words, is there a chance you're going to lose? Yes, but you've done so many things to win that the odds of you losing go way down, right? We go back to the relationship, for example. How was it that you guys got your wives, right? It wasn't that you just showed up and you're like, aquí estoy, right? You're like, you're like, oh, you're so awesome, I love you. No, what did you do? You bought her flowers, you took her on dates, you went on trips, you bought her clothes. You did all of these things.
We totally faked a Hispanic accent. That was one too.
I didn't fake it, dude. My mom's Puerto Rican. So
that's us. That's us. I'm joking. I'm joking.
But what you do is you become more conscious of the things. Like, again, you just start investing in her, right? And so you're putting yourself in a position of advantage. You want a more intimate relationship, then invest in that relationship, right? Just like with your clients, if you want to have a better connection with your clients, what do? You invest more with your clients, right?
Yeah.
And so when you think about this, and this was really hard for me to swallow, by the way, is my wife doesn't want me to be with her 24 hours a day. She doesn't. She likes her time for herself. Yeah. She likes her time with the kids. We have 2 rabbits. She likes her time with the rabbits, right? And that's okay. That's a good thing. The time, though, that I'm with her, then I'm fully present, right? So I've done these things to put myself in a position of advantage, which then allows me to be present and allows us, to do these different things. So whether you're talking about content or you're talking about your relationship, it's the same thing. You put yourself in a position to succeed ahead of time instead of just showing up and be like, all right, here I am. That sucks.
Yeah.
Wait, before you go real quick, I want to clarify something here real quick. Gerritt, you say, our wives, for the single ladies out there, I don't have a wife. Just throwing that out there,
Or girlfriend. He's completely single and available.
There you go.
But he's using the tools, though.
All right, back to the conversation, guys.
Back to the conversation. No, I mean, I think this is wonderful, right? Because we talked a lot about being in business is having relationships, right? Whatever that is, either with your clients, but at the same time, I love that we're making that link with the personal life too, because if that personal life is under control and you are having massive success there, you're going to be happier, and then you're going to transmit that into your job. And I love the point that you make about taking care of everything in advance, right? The what's it called? Hold on. The tactical advantage, right? You're like, okay, let me plan this out. Let me not just throw spaghetti to the wall and see what sticks. It's like, I need to study whatever I'm doing, my market, my things, my clients. Like, how do I get to that and come up with a plan and execute? Might not be perfect, you might fail miserably, but then you learn something and then you try again, right? You plan ahead and do it. So it's funny because lately with our clients, right? It's like, I feel like everything has to be on the move. I have to do it now, super fast as far as like content. We got to get this thing out. Like, let's slow down. It's okay if we take like a 2 week to plan this out. So then we can execute on a faster pace later on and do it later. And that comes not just with content, but also with business. And I'm sure as we study different companies and high performers, I'm sure 100% like you are, right? That's what you guys do. You study the market, you study your clients, you study your relationships, right? Even if it's your family, right? It's like, how can I put myself in a position where they get the most out of me? And like you said, I love the fact that the time, the 2 minutes, the 10 minutes, the half hour, the 2 hours, whatever the time you're spending with that person is with that person. And I'm guilty of not always doing that. So I love that you're saying that, because it's like, okay, I gotta make sure that I do that. You know, like throwing the phone into the closet and paying full attention to my wife.
Yeah. Okay.
I think this is the episode I'm gonna tell her to listen to, because then she can be like, okay, Luis, you know, you said that on the show live, so you gotta execute it.
Yeah, super random fact here. You know, I've noticed, talking about the tactical advantage, I noticed that the days I feel the most successful is the days that I plan ahead. You know, that I go into the day with a plan the night before. I sit down, say I need to do this by this time. When I leave it not to chance, but when I have it in my mind, but I don't really plan it, I feel like I don't have that tactical advantage, right? So I guess, Matt, I want to know, you know, what is the best way to come in with a tactical advantage, whether that is, or maybe both business life related, you know, again, that balance, and I'm doing air quotations for people that are just listening here.
I love that. Well, that's really the foundation of everything that I do, right? We said earlier that there is no balance, and there isn't, which is why it's so important every day to invest in every area. Right. So every day when I wake up, there's 3 areas that I focus on, and I call it power, purpose, and profit. The first one is power, and that's my relationship with myself, with my physical body. So every single day I spend time sweating, going to the gym, running, whatever it is. Every single day I do that. And of course, it serves multiple purposes. I'm not a doctor, releases the good hormones in the body, you know, so on and so forth, helps you look and feel good. Right. The second thing I do is I set myself up for making good habits of eating food throughout the day. Now, that doesn't mean I always do. When I was in Mexico, all bets were off.
How do we know?
So like for me, it's a green smoothie in the morning, right? So I'm setting myself physically up for success. The next area is purpose, and it's twofold. It's relationship with God, or your maker, your creator, whatever you want to call him, and then your relationship with your family. So I spend time in the morning meditating, praying, focusing on God a little bit. I journal. And then I spend a little bit of time, and I send my wife and my kids either sticky notes or voice notes or text messages or video messages. I send them a note every day and say, hey, I appreciate you for this. I'm thankful for this. Something simple, right? And if your kids are small, like Luis, your kid is super small right now, it might just be a smiley face picture.
Yeah.
It's okay, right? But eventually he's going to start relating that to, my dad gave me this, right? My kids are all teenagers now. So what do? I do memes. Like, they just like memes. So I find a funny meme, and you know, it's a silly thing. But what that allows me to do then is focus on the last area, which is profit, and that's my business, right? And this is where, Luis, where you were talking about every single day when you set yourself up for success. This is where I look at strategy and execution. What needs to be accomplished today, and then how am I going to accomplish it? Mm-hmm. So by the time 8 o'clock rolls around and I hit the office, there is no doubt on what needs to happen. I already know what I'm doing it. I know how I'm doing it, and I know that my family's been taken care of. I know that I've been taking care of myself physically. So there's no chasing anything throughout the day. So that's I call it the P3 system, but ultimately that's the purpose, is put yourself in a position to win every day. Yeah. And you can, you know, and a lot of people think that they need mentors or coaches. And of course, I'm a coach or strategist, whatever you want to call it, but you don't need somebody like me. You just need to take these tools and implement them yourself, right? Yeah. Where do I come in? I come in when you don't have the what's the right word? You don't have the motivation to do it. I'll kick you in the balls and get you to do it. Like
exactly.
Love it.
I have a quick question, right? Because you talk about the P3 system, and I love it. Right?
Wait, before you go into that, I was going to ask, how do you name that system? I was going to be, is it the PPP? Is it the like P to the third? what was it, right? So P3, I like it.
The P3 system, yeah. So, because a lot of people, right, like we have all these recipes going around, and everybody has their own point of view, and clearly this is something that works for you, and like you mentioned before, people started asking. So, what happens when somebody, let's say, they have a different system, like they operate at a different way. The schedule might not be the same, right? We start encountering these friction points that might prevent us from executing perfectly a system like the P3, right? What happens now? Like, how do you recommend people to, let's say they find a recipe that is supposed to work, that is proven that works, like your P3 system, but then for them individually it doesn't work? Like, what's then? Like, do we try more and make it work, or do we find something different? What happens?
Great question. The first thing I ask is another question, which is, what do you want? Like, if you want balance in your life, air quotes, if you want to physically stay on top of your body, if you want to have a successful business, then you're going to have to implement some version of a morning routine. You guys can go research, all the big wigs. Tim Ferriss has that big book. I think I got it on my shelf somewhere, where he interviewed all the billionaires. Every single one of them has some version of a morning routine.
Yeah.
When I first started off, like I would get up at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. That was when I'd get up. But in order for me to fit in the things that I knew I needed to fit in, guess what time I get up every morning? 4 o'clock in the morning.
Ooh.
4 o'clock. No, 4 o'clock. The first hour is all me. The next hour is all gym. So by the time I hit my house at 6 o'clock, my wife wakes up. We get our stuff done. We do some stuff together. We get the kids up. We have breakfast. Like 8 o'clock, I'm already 4 hours into my day. Yeah. Where most people are still like their second cup of coffee, trying to figure it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I knew that that's what needed to happen because of what I wanted. Right. So I'm not going to tell you that you need a morning routine if that's not something that you want, right? If you're cool, like life is chill and you're happy, going to work at 9 and going home at 5, cool. This isn't for you. But if you're looking for that more out of life, you have to start implementing a morning routine. You have to start putting yourself in a position of advantage every single day.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I love that, because I've been trying to, I guess, find my morning routine. I'm curious. At what time do you go to sleep?
About 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock? Okay, cool. Because that's what I was trying. And I was getting up like at 6. And I mean, it wasn't bad. I would, get a workout, read a little bit, make my breakfast, lunch, all that stuff ready for the day, and then I'll be at the office. But I find myself wanting to, do it a little earlier because of the same reason. And I think I did this unconsciously, but I was like, okay, what do I want? Well, I won't work out at night because after the day I'm exhausted. So I know I need to do it in the morning. So I need to fit it in the morning. Therefore, I need to wake up early. I like to read. At night, I usually don't read that many like business books related. So I'm like, okay, I need to read business books. I'm going to read it in the morning, right? So for me right now, I'm like, I would love to do that at a coffee shop before even coming into the business, right? Into the office. So I'm thinking like I need to get myself to wake up at like 5:30 so I can work out, have breakfast, and then immediately go to the coffee shop that opens at 7. And then I have 2 hours there for reading. Hopefully I want to get into writing, and then I can get at the office at 9, and that'll be perfect, right? So it's cool, and I'm going to say it is my own fault, right? I think, assume it, because I could be going to bed at 9:30, 10, but then I go to bed at 10 and I start reading, and then I don't go to sleep until actually 11, and then I don't get up, right? So it's funny because, man, I could just go on this because I'm reading another book, but I love it. I love that example because, well, first, I agree that we need to ask yourself, what do I want? And then see how we fit it in our life. And most of us, I feel that we skip that. We're like, oh, I want this, but then we don't ask ourselves, how do I fit this in my life?
Yeah, I wanna like hone down like on this question. What do you want? Because a lot of people, and the reason I ask is because we've seen it a lot with not only the clients that we have, but with people that we've been helping, right? It's like, I tried this for 2 days and it didn't work. right? Like, wow, that's a hard try. Come on, right? And it's like, okay, what do you really want, right?
Yeah.
Do you really want to create an impact? Do you really want to create your persona? Do you really want to help people through values and stuff? And I want to bring it to the show context, like the content side of things, because this is one of the things that a lot of people overlook big time, right? It's like, I just gonna, publish something and then magic is gonna happen. I mean, how long have you been publishing? You have more than 100 episodes of your podcast itself, right? It takes time, right? In repetition and that routine. So I love the fact that you bring up that what do you want? Is this really something that you really want? Is the impact that you want to create around you and your business really massive? So I encourage everybody to take note of that question. And every time that you get faced with like, I don't really know if this works, I don't really know, go back, and if it's a successful case that people are having success with, go back and ask yourself, is this really what I want? Because if it's not, that's okay, but you got to accept that that's not what you want. And if it really was what you want, then go actually and execute and stick to it. So I love that you brought that point, and thank you for doing that, because like you've been doing, everything that is in life is also related to business.
Everything. Yeah, I'm going to take it a step further. There's actually 3 questions. So the first one is always, what do you want, right? The next question is why? Like, why do you want it, right? Because again, everybody wants to be Insta famous. Everybody wants to have 1 million followers. Everybody, but why? Most of the people who have a bunch of followers on Instagram are broke. Just like most of the people, we're both in the ClickFunnels community. Most of the people who have gotten a 2 Comma Club award, which is they've done $1 million in a sales funnel, are broke. Why? Because they did it for all the wrong reasons, right? They did it for the plaque on the wall. They wanted to show that they could do it so that they could coach other people on how to coach people, all that stuff, right?
The infinite ladder of coaches.
Why it'll drive you through the periods of time when you start to doubt, when you start to question. Right? I like to equate it to climbing a mountain. Before I give you that example, I'll give you the third question. The third question is always the last one you ask, which is how, right? If you know what you want and you know why you want it, then how becomes a lot easier, right? I know where I'm going. I know why it matters, and how I get there. Now we can start to play with that. I like to hike mountains. I do a bunch of hikes for charity and some whatnot. And there's a mountain in Phoenix. It's called Camelback Mountain, right in the middle of town. It's a beautiful mountain. And I like to get up there super early to watch the sunrise. And the thing about Camelback Mountain is there's not one way to get to the top. There's a bunch of boulders. You end up going left, right, kind of all over the place. But all these boulders, all these little trails, all these different routes lead one place, to the top of the mountain, right? So if you know what you want, you know why you want it, the how can change, right? How you do it can change, but you're still going to that same place, right? When we talk about content is so important. And you guys know, I believe this. I'm almost on 200 episodes of my podcast.
Amazing.
Guess what 150 of my episodes are mostly about? I don't know, just whatever I was thinking about at the time, right? There was no reason or rhyme to it. If you look at, I was doing lives on Facebook for 2 years straight. Every single day I would do a live.
Wow.
Now the reps were great, but again, it was just like, hey, this is what's happening. Hey, you should do this. And then I'd end it. There was no purpose behind it, right? No reason why. So until I started to hone that in, like none of it mattered. It wasn't going to take me to where I wanted. This is why having a content strategy is so important. I know now that the content that I'm putting out is directed to a certain person to get them to take a certain action. That's it, right? I know that. And so when I'm creating the content, I create it ahead of time with that in mind. Like what are they struggling with right now in their business or in their personal life? What's consuming their minds? What's frustrating them? That's what I'm talking to, knowing that later on I'm going to cut pieces of content out, put it out, knowing that it's going to connect with them because that's what they're feeling right now.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love this because, and again, like people, the other day we had a conversation and they were like, guys, what do you really love? Because every time that you're on a guest with your show, you actually go ahead and say you love it. And it's because you are solving problems for your audience. And that's a lot of people where they get stuck and like, well, I got to teach this thing and I got to get super fancy. And like you keeping it super simple. You learn something really important from publishing live for 2 years. Wow. Like we did 45 days and Fonzie couldn't even finish that, right? Yeah, I finished the second time. That's it. And then we started the show. But that says first a lot about you. You got the reps and you learn a big lesson, right? And now you can actually go back and be like, okay, you know, this is a reason why I do this, which is the second question that you told us, right? And how do I do it? Well, right now you passed from the podcast, right? That was, from your lives. That was one thing. And now you're doing it with your podcast and your content strategy together. So you're explaining right there that the how can change. And, but it only changed when you actually recognize that those Facebook Lives were not taking you to the right direction. And that's okay. But your what, or what do you want, stays the same. So your goal is up there and then you do it. So I think this is a wonderful example for a lot of people out there that are starting to get into this thing. It's like, okay, you want really the quick buck, or do you really want to make an impact, or like exactly what do you want? Go ahead and go through those 3 questions. Like, what do you want? Why do you want it? And then how? And then, like you said, I love that you can actually, you give permission for people to change the how. If it's not really working for you, why go through that pain? That's okay. You have the what and the why. Try something different.
Yeah. Relating that how to your audience. Sometimes we get a little resistant from some of the people we're trying to sell. That probably means that they are not the right audience. And it's like changing the how instead of just like changing your product. Just go and look and change your audience and look for the right customer.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because I actually have a new campaign that I launched a few weeks ago. And the one thing that I was varying, yes, the copy and the photos and stuff, but the one thing I was really watching was the audience. And I went with like 10 different audiences, just broad audiences, to see which ones would connect with the message. And it was really interesting that ones that I didn't think would connect were the ones that were commenting more, liking more, clicking on the landing page, those different things. But again, I wasn't tied to like, it has to be this audience. I just knew what I wanted, which was the end game. And I said, okay, I'm willing to try all of these to see which one works.
Yeah. So I have a question regarding the why, right? Because out of these 3 questions, and this is very personal, I think the why is the most difficult one to come up with. You know, I consider myself a person that likes a lot of things, and and I'm not talking about like material things, but like I want to experience a lot of things, right? And I want to help a lot of people. And I would say my whys at this point right now are very broad, right? And every time I hear it's like, you need to have very specific whys. And I've tried, but it's very difficult, honestly, right? I don't know if it's that because of the point in my life where I'm at, whatnot. But I'm just curious, how do you get to those specific whys? Like, is there a reason? Just keep asking the question so many times, or I don't know. I'm just curious, honestly.
Good question. So Toyota, back in, I think it was the 70s or the 80s, they, and don't ask me to say the guy's name because, but they came up with this way to motivate their workforce, right? And what they called it was the 5 levels of why. And so they would ask like, okay, so why are you doing this thing, right? And so the question would be answered, and then they would ask again, why? Then another question, it would be another answer. And then they would go down to 5 levels of why. And what they found is that the 5th level of why, you get to this place, and now some people get there sooner, yes, but usually at the 5th level of why, you're super clear on the actual reason why you're doing whatever it is that you're doing, right? And at first, it's very difficult to answer. If you were to ask me when I first got into business, well, I want to help people. Hey, let's go help people. But that's not clear enough, right? And so I had to dig down deep enough, and there's 2 purposes as to why I'm doing what I'm doing. One is to impact as many lives of married business owners as I can to solidify not just their businesses, but their personal lives, right? And ultimately help them get what they want out of life. But number 2 for me, and again, this is one you won't hear anywhere. My wife was a special ed teacher for 15 years. And so we decided a couple of years ago that what we want to do is open up schools so that special ed kids can receive education on par with everybody else. Like that's what we want to do. Yeah. And so I understand that there's a certain numerical number, which doesn't matter on the show, but I know there's a certain number that I want to reach in residual income, that when we hit that number, guess what I'm going to go do? That. Yeah. Right. And so I have a very strong reason why when I get up in the morning, and by the way, I don't jump out of bed. I'm not like Jocko Willink. I don't take a picture of my watch. Like sometimes I crawl out of bed. Sometimes I like hit my phone trying to get it to shut up. Like it happens, right? I'm human. I'm normal. Yeah. But it always comes back to that reason why. Like, why are you getting up so early in the morning? Why do you get on the Zoom calls all the time? Why is it that you get on the phone? Why is it you pour so much time and energy into it? There's a reason why, right? And I know what mine is, and it's super clear. So for you, it's not that you're not doing it right. There's a few more whys that you have to ask, but as you go through life, your whys are going to shift a little bit. Like right now, you're not married, you don't have kids. So your brother, for example, like he's much more clear on his why because there's more on the table, there's more writing on it, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't make you bad or anything. Right now, if it's broad, that's okay. Let it be broad, right? Just picture what you want to go to and the reason why that's important to you and just start going down that path. And it adjusts as you move through life. Like right now, you guys know that we moved from Arizona to Boise, Idaho. Why did you do that? Well, my why shifted slightly. My kids are older, which means, I know, grandkids.
Coming.
Coming soon, right? So what I said is nobody wants to hang out in Arizona in the summer. It's too hot.
Yeah.
So I want to go somewhere where it's not as hot and people like to hang out in the summer.
Beautiful.
So we found a place, right? So the reason why kind of drove that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Do you ever find...
Great decision, by the way, because we went to Boise and in summer and it was amazing.
Beautiful.
I couldn't believe it. I was like,
my
amazing.
my wife is Canadian, so the second I proposed to her, like, hey, do you ever consider going to Boise maybe when you're 2 just to hang out and learn and meet people? And she's like, absolutely not. There's a reason I live in Florida I came to Florida from Canada, but it's okay. We'll go on vacation. We'll come hang out with you guys during the summer because it's hot and humid down here. Do you ever find, going around the why question, right? Do you ever find that people might forget that why? And is it because it's not strong enough? Or what are some methods for people to avoid distractions and stay focused on that why, right? Talking about either life why, business why, what are some things that people can do? Or am I recognizing that if I forget that why, it might not be a strong enough why?
Yeah, that's two very powerful points there, right? One is forgetting, and the other one is it's not a strong why. The first thing that I want everybody to understand is it's okay. Like if your why is not strong, that's okay. Like you're still figuring it out. It's not like one day I woke up and I was like, oh, I got it all figured out. I got life figured out. No, when my life was at the lowest of lows and I was, looking at divorce and looking at, all these other things, I had no idea what my why was. I had no idea why I was doing what I was doing. I had no idea what I wanted. Like it was super murky. It wasn't clear. It took 4 to 5 years of constant work to start to hone that and refine it, right?
Yeah.
People talk about like we love diamonds, right? Everybody wants a diamond, right?
Yeah.
Do you know that coal and diamond are the same thing? The only difference between a piece of coal and diamond is pressure and time. That's it. Pressure and time. So we all want to shine like a diamond, right? We all want but we all started as a piece of coal. What do we need? We need pressure and time, right? And so no, you don't want to avoid the pressure. And yes, it's going to take time. That's just part of the game, right? And so like for me, for example, I live life in 90-day cycles. A lot of people are like, oh, what's your 20-year goal? Do you know how much changes in 20 years? Like think of you guys 4 months ago. How much has changed?
Oh, yeah.
Like a lot, right? So it changes all the time. So what I say is you have to live your life in 20-year cycles. There's an end game that you want. And I always have an end game that's monetarily tied because it can be any kind of different business, but there's a monetary figure for me. But the how, like we talked about before, can change, right?
Yeah.
So for me, 90-day cycles, like, okay, we're halfway through the year. So I just started a new 90-day cycle. What is it that I want in this 90-day cycle? And I look at my relationship, I look at my physical body, and then I look at my business, and I have a goal or a target inside of every 90-day cycle, right? So I'm very focused on what I'm doing. And then at the end of the 90-day cycles, what do? I go back and I go, hey, did I do what I said I was going to do? Yes or no? If I didn't, well, why not? Like what went wrong? What happened? And then what am I setting up for this next 90-day cycle? So the problem that we have, especially today, and you guys know we have the attention span that's less than a goldfish, right? It's like, I don't know, 7 seconds or something, and we're on to the next thing. It is maintaining that focus. And that's why going back to the morning routine, why it's so important. What does it do? It just focuses us, right? Like I gave up wanting a 6-pack a long time ago because I knew the 6-pack wasn't going to work for me, right? Sure, 10% body fat would be awesome, maybe at some point. But right now, like what's more important to me? It's playing soccer with my son. It's going running with my daughter. It's going on a bike. I want to be physically healthy so that I can enjoy life with them. Like that's what's more important to me.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I love the maintaining focus. I think actually today I have this like quarterly goal sheet that I totally neglected last quarter, I must say.
Lesson learned.
But I was looking at it, and I have a spot there that it says like, what is my word for the quarter, right? And first quarter was discipline. I did it for this first quarter, and then second quarter clearly wasn't disciplined enough to even fill that shit up. But on this one, I came back and I was like, what is my word? And I was like, focus. Because I've been trying to, since Funnel Hacking Live that we saw Dan Henry, that he talked about the focus pizza, I was like, you know what? Like, this is key, right? Like, I cannot, multitasking doesn't exist. I cannot do multiple things at a time. If I just focus on one and get it done, I feel good with myself. So instead of trying to get a lot of things done, I'm just going to try to do one and then move on to the next thing. So I've been trying to make focus that kind of like big aspect in my life. So I don't know. I have a question regarding focus. You know, how do you see it, and what role does it play in the people that you're trying to help? You know, how do you see focus in the people that are trying to achieve, air quotes, balance, right? Do they have a different perspective of it? You have to shift their perspective towards it.
Yeah, and you kind of answered it already, and they do have to shift their perspective, right? And for everybody, they have to. The first and most important thing in that whole game that we play called life is ownership. Like, you have to own your life. You know, a lot of us complain about, I grew up in a small border town and we were on food stamps and my dad was a teacher working 3 jobs and blah, blah, blah. I could say that story all day long, but I'm not the only one with that story, right? So what makes me different from somebody who's still living on welfare in a trailer park in a small little border town? I took ownership for my life, and I said, in order for me to get what I want, it's not about the cards that I'm dealt, it's how I'm playing those cards.
Yeah.
And I'm going to maximize how I play those cards, right?
Yeah.
The second thing, and you talked about this, is focus, right? So what is focus? Focus is nothing more than the ability to get something done. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And so when we talked about the routine, the morning routine, why it's so important is every day it refocuses you on what's important. Every day, you guys know, you don't want to go to the gym every day. Who does, right? So you want to go to the gym every day, but it's part of your to-do list. I got to go to the gym. Okay, what am I doing right now? The gym. That's it. Okay, what am I doing? I'm coming home. Donuts? No, not donuts. I'm gonna go green smoothie. All right. Okay, now, God, what's my relationship with my purpose in life? Let me focus, meditate on that. Okay, my family. It's just like one thing after the next thing after the next thing. So by the time you get to the business side of things, it's strategy and execution, which is nothing more than what am I accomplishing today and how am I accomplishing it? And like you said, it can be a little thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to finish this graphic, or I'm going to email these 10 clients, or whatever it is. But every day you want to go home and say, I won today.
Yeah.
Like, how did I win? Because I did what I said I was going to do.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful. I believe in that feeling of winning. You can have a to-do list of 10 things and accomplish 9 and then go home thinking you lost the day because you didn't do that one thing. And I think keeping the to-do list shorter, it helps to gain that momentum, right? And we've talked about momentum is key. And I have a question regarding people, right? Taking these decisions and all that. Like, why do you think it's so difficult for people to change? Because a lot of us are like, I want to do this. I want to do it, right? I'm going to start to do it. And maybe we double here and then we don't do it for other 2 weeks and then we come back to it and then we don't do it again. And that doesn't say that they don't really want it, right? Like on the inside, they might be dying to be a certain type of person. But why is it so difficult for actually experiencing real, meaningful change?
That's a very, very good question. And what I've found over my life and the people that I've worked with is desire is only a small part of the equation. Like it's only like, I can tell you guys, like I want to make $2 million a year. So what? What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything, right? It's the action behind that desire, right? That's what leads us to change. And so when you look at this, it's in your life. What I figured out is there's 3 things that you have to have in place to help you get what you want. 3 things. And I have it in my life as well, right?
Yeah.
And I call it a map. Now, you guys remember the days back before we had, Google Maps and Apple Maps and all that good stuff. Like you'd whip out a map, right? A physical map. And how was it that you figured out where you wanted to go? Well, you had to start where you were at, right? Yeah. Same thing with Apple Maps. The only reason it works, or Google Maps, is it knows where you're starting from. That's the only way that it can tell you where to go, right? So you need a map. The first thing, the M, is a mentor. You need somebody who's been there before to help guide you along that process, to help guide you to that specific place.
Yeah.
And again, depending on where you're at, it could be a sales coach, it could be a life coach, it could be a strategist, it could be whatever it is, right? Think about, you guys both played soccer, right?
Yep.
Well, how was it that your team was successful? It wasn't just the 11 players on the field.
Well, Fonzie's team was not successful at all. Let me tell you that.
He's just jealous.
No, but you're right. Yeah, all jokes aside, yes. We had a coach.
Right? So put the strategy in place, and then you guys went and you ran the play, right? So you need a mentor. The second thing is you need accountability. Too many of us think that like life is going to happen just because we say it's going to happen. Oh, it's so hard to do it on your own. So hard. So find a group of people that are headed your way. And that could be as part of the mentor group, or it could just be like you pick a few of your friends, you say, hey, we're going to do this together. We're going to hold each other accountable. We're going to do this, right? Yeah. And the third part of that is the plan. Like you need a plan. Me just saying I want to make $2 million doesn't mean anything if I don't have a way to make it happen, right?
Yeah.
So you need a map, you need a mentor, you need accountability, you need a plan. That's how you focus on actually achieving what you want out of life.
Love it.
I am going to take this as the action point 100% because it is so clear. I mean, the whole episode was so clear, you know, from the 3 questions, you know, through the P3 system to now, how do you actually implement your map strategy? We're going to call it the secret map strategy, you know, find your mentor, find your accountability group, and then find a plan or create a plan. And that's okay. You don't have to be right from the start. I mean, we lived it through the show, right? At the beginning, we're like, how are we going to actually do this 3 times a week? Like, and just like you, Gary, we're like, let's just talk about what happened today and teach something. And then, you know, but that might have not been the initial intent of the show, but then it got us to the point that we're actually developing this amazing relationship with you guys on the other side of the screen, right? So I love it. I'm just gonna ask you, there's like 2 more questions as we bring down the show, but I'm actually gonna ask you, like right now, what is something that they can actually execute? Because, you know, as I look at the map strategy, which is amazing, but it can look pretty intimidating, right? Because there's so many points in here and they might be lost. Or we might get lost. What is something that
it might take a while to find like the right mentor too,
exactly
sometimes.
Or yeah, exactly. Or the right.
Although I recommend you guys go for Gerritt if you want a mentor.
100%. 100%. We solved the first issue right there.
Yeah.
Okay. What is something that people can do now? Like what is a fast thing that they can do today to start moving to the
next step?
So there's a few different things, right? But to keep it simple is I always tell people is like establish that morning routine. Like you have to start with those habits in the morning that are setting you up for success. So again, I've got the P3 system, which is, you know, power, purpose, and profit. Focus on your physical body, focus on your relationship with God and your family, and then focus on your business. But it doesn't have to be that, right? You can go research other mentors. You can go research other, you know, successful people and just establish a morning routine and stick to it. Like that's right now, if you're just starting out, that's going to be the biggest thing that's going to start to move you in that direction that you want to go in.
Awesome. I love it. I'm definitely, you know, I'm definitely gonna, no, I'm not gonna say I'm gonna try because I'm gonna succeed. I'm gonna, you know, do it, and I'm gonna send you the results, Gerritt. I'm gonna be like, hey, Gerritt, expect a 5 a.m. text.
So now we have the mentor, which is Gerritt. Now we have the accountability, which is also Gerritt with the text, and me, obviously. And now we got a plan, which is
get up early, go to sleep early, and get up early.
Go to sleep early. I love it. Awesome, guys. If you're listening, please go ahead and repeat the show again and listen to all this amazingness and not just apply it with your relationships, obviously super important. Apply it to your business, and you're going to see that both are going to grow like crazy. And I need to plug it. Apply to your content to all these principles, all these frameworks as super simple that you can replicate it not just in life, in business, but also in your content. Try things out. Come up with your map strategy, starting with your morning routine. What's happening there, so then you can be set up to success for the rest of the day. Now, Gary, we obviously talk about content and we want to push people to success. we stopped saying motivating people to success because Fonzie doesn't like the word motivation, and that's a whole different episode. Yes, and I feel like you agreed to. So we want to ask you this: where will you be if you did not publish?
That's a good question. Honestly, probably in the same place I was when I started, right? Because especially nowadays, if you're not publishing, nobody knows who you are. Nobody knows what you do, and there's so much noise right now that, I mean, it's the infinite scroll, they call it, right? Like, just scroll through. Why? Because like if you're not on the news feed, you don't exist.
Yeah.
If you're not on Instagram, on Facebook, or LinkedIn, or wherever it is that you're publishing, right? Obviously, where your audience is. Like, if you're not there, you don't exist, right? And there's obviously different strategies for doing that. But what I would recommend is obviously to work with you guys and like establish that strategy so that you start to exist inside of a client's mind. They say that 90 to 95% of people are not ready to buy on the first time they see you or the first time you offer them something. So in other words, it could be a 6 to 9 to 12 month sales process. And if you're not constantly in front of them, again, what happens? You forget about them.
Yeah.
So yeah, content is king.
Thank you. Yes. I mean, every single episode, I feel like everybody has that point of view, and it's amazing. So thank you for encouraging everybody that's listening. And if they made it to this point, wow, what an amazing value-packed episode they just
like you said before, a little kick in the balls.
A little kick in the balls. Or a JJ's if they're women. That's it. No disrespect. Just being... We gotta include everybody.
No, that's right. We gotta include everybody. That's right.
Awesome. Gerritt, where can we find you? Where can people find out more about you? Where can they learn from you?
Great question. I literally only have one place. I used to have about 6, and that didn't work either. So yeah, learning. If you go to thetacticalbusinessman.com. Now, I will preface this by saying, women, I love you. You're awesome. But right now, I only coach men. There's a reason for that. Doesn't really matter right now, but you can implement all this stuff, by the way. It's not just for men. But as far as who do I work with married business owners. That's who I focus on. But if it's something you're interested in, you want to learn more, go to thetacticalbusinessman.com. I've got a video you can watch. Yeah, it's a little long, but hey, that's the way things are sometimes. But you'll go through it and you'll see, hey, this is for me or this isn't. But ultimately, what I'm trying to give you is the tools, the tactics, the techniques that you can use to create the life that you've always wanted.
It's exciting.
Love that. Go check it out, guys.
Yeah, it was an absolute pleasure. Only we have 2 minutes after we go offline. I want to say gracias. But with that being said, guys, thank you so much for staying with us. And please don't forget to subscribe. Hit that subscribe button and follow us on social media at Beast Bros Co.
That's right, guys. And if you like this and you found it impactful, don't forget to share it and leave a 5-star review. Thank you.